It is a thematic day to talk about nature and land use and the oceans. So, with our panelists today, we're going to take a little time not to think about the human impact on humanity, but the human impact on everything on this planet that is not us, and how nuclear energy can, in fact, help with this. So, I'm going to introduce our panelists one by one. And I'm going to ask them to share with us something about how nuclear energy can help with preserving nature as we are also trying to reduce climate change. And now we'll move on to Tia Tormunen. She's the international coordinator for the advocacy organization RePlanet. And I'm sure she'll love to share with you an interesting fact about how nuclear can save the nature.
Hello, everyone. RePlanet is an environmental global network, and we believe technologies can be solutions, not problems, and that's why we are pro-nuclear, pro-gene editing, pro-precision fermentation, for example. In the 80s, when I became an environmentalist as a child, climate change, it was talked about, but not as much, so I came into environmentalism from the biodiversity perspective, so we were talking about rainforests and stuff like that. And I'm a biologist as well. And so why I always thought nuclear was a good idea, because it has a very small land use footprint. People come to me when I talk about nuclear, asking about what about mining, for example. And when I tell them that nuclear actually requires less mining than solar and wind, they're like, wow, because they think mining is a problem from nuclear. And I always say that if you don't like mining and the impacts of mining, then you should advocate for nuclear. And this is very surprising to people. And I just recently visited Olkiluoto 3 plant in Finland, which is the newest nuclear power plant that we have. And it was amazing to see that on this tiny island, you can walk through it in maybe like 15 minutes. We have 3 nuclear plants. They produce 30% of our electricity in Finland in just this tiny island. And it's surrounded by nature. They actually have like a nature paths going around there, and there's swans swimming in front of the nuclear plant, nothing coming out of the plant. No pollution, nothing. It's amazing. So that's why I support nuclear.
Been talking about this a lot within our communities, but I think quite often it's a narrative out in the wider world that we have to change. I feel like people do automatically draw an equal sign between solar and wind and being good for nature and being in harmony with nature. But somehow nuclear, even though, as discussed, it is the densest form of power, and therefore we can spare the maximum amount of nature by not using that area, somehow it still has this image problem. Do you guys find that out in the wild amongst us humans in the concrete jungle, that perception? And what do you think we can do to try and shift that? Because I think all of us here probably are interested in nuclear, are not surprised. Who here is surprised by the fact that nuclear is the densest form of clean energy generation? I don't think anybody is. We all know this. We're talking to the choir. But how can we break this perception out in the wider world?
Yeah, so actually took a picture of the Olkiluoto island with the swans swimming in front of it, and I did publish it in social media, and people were very excited about that and sharing that image. It was very popular. It was like, wow, that looks amazing. And we don't even have the cooling towers, don't have the vapor coming out. So it was just amazing, and people said that that's so beautiful, and like how much electricity it produces. And yes, we need to be sharing those images. When it comes to three-eyed fish, usually I get also a lot of questions about Chernobyl. And what people don't know, it's a thriving biodiversity area right now. It's a nature conservation area, and it has like one of the most thriving wolf populations, for example, wild horses, everything, and we need to be showing this. And it's because of human absence that this place has this. So our absence is more devastating to environment than a nuclear accident, the worst in history, because we're not messing with anything there, and the nature can just be there, and so the populations there, animal populations are thriving.
Technology is neutral. Uranium is neutral, but certain things in our culture get coded as left wing, right wing, in, out. I'm afraid that somehow even nuclear uses very little land and actually allows nature to be wild. Somehow it has been coded as industrial. and it has been coded as anti-nature and hyper-human development. So I'm just wondering what we can do to shift that. And in fact, so many of the mainstream environmental organizations, chief of which, most famous, let's say, is Greenpeace, are still anti-nuclear. How can we reach out to them and change that fact?
Yeah, so in Finland, Greenpeace does not campaign against nuclear. Actually, they've said very nice things about nuclear. Like when Olkiluoto 3 came online, they said that they're wishing the best of luck for the plant, and they're actually considering SMRs for district heating. And the leader of the Nordic Greenpeace, who was formerly the leader of the Finnish Greenpeace, said that she doesn't believe that we can achieve net zero targets without nuclear.
Wow.
So there has been huge progress in Finland, and the climate youth in Finland, including Fridays for Future, for example, are pro-nuclear. They even published a public statement when Greta Thunberg came out saying that she thinks that nuclear shouldn't be in the taxonomy. They made a public statement saying that Future Finland thinks that nuclear should be in the taxonomy, not gas, but nuclear should be in. And the Green Party in Finland, I'm also in the Green Party, is pro-nuclear. So we have changed the whole environmental scene in Finland. And so it's possible in other countries as well.
I don't know why it is. Maybe because nuclear waste lasts for a long time. People have this mistaken idea in their mind that somehow nuclear waste is uniquely polluting compared to everything else that we generate as a part of our industrial process. And for some reason that uniqueness stick in people's mind and they aren't able to put it in context. And one way I do want to put it in context is the scale of, we know that it's denser. Can anybody tell me, for a standard gigawatt scale nuclear power plant, how much solar panels or how much wind turbines will we need to replace that?
Well, when it comes to waste, I usually say that, if all of your energy needs throughout your lifetime would be powered by nuclear energy, the amount of waste would be like one Red Bull can, basically. And people are just, wow, that's not much. Then they can think about how much waste producing just, living their daily lives and comparing that to a Red Bull can. That's an image that I like to use quite a bit.
I really have a lot of empathy for ordinary people because I didn't used to be in energy. I haven't been in energy all my life. I was a reporter, and before I reported on energy, to me it was very abstract. And of course, it's like you just think, okay, solar panels are good, wind turbines are good, and they are good, but when compared to the power of nuclear, most people I think they still don't get it. That is something that we really have to change. I also want to talk about, again, to have empathy for everyday people who think this way. When I was a little girl, the first thing I read about nuclear energy was in a book about how once you use a piece of land for nuclear power plant, you could never use it for anything else ever again. You get to generate power for 40 years, and then that land is forbidden forever. And I remember that was so scary to me. There seems to be something uniquely contaminating about this form of power generation. I still remember, of course, now I realize it's completely wrong. You can use a nuclear power plant for above 40 years, 80 years, who knows, maybe longer, we don't know yet. And also you can return the land completely to nature, and we've done that. This association is so deep in people. I would like to invite our panelists to tell us, how can we break that association and reintroduce nuclear as a friend of nature? And how can we do it not one at a time, but en masse?
Same in Finland. So there are areas in Finland where there's a lot of wind. So there's a lot of wind turbines. And in some areas in Finland, it's so saturated already that you can't go anywhere without seeing them. And so people are getting a little bit bored and frustrated with because it's not the same thing as just looking at a pristine forest. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look the same. To me, that's industrial as well. It doesn't look like untouched nature at all. I do realize it's an illusion because a lot of our forests are actually used for forestry, so that's not pristine either. But in any case, I also think it's very important, like you said, not a lot of people see nuclear plants. It's very important to show what it looks like inside a nuclear plant, what it looks like in social media. So what I've really appreciated what current Miss America, Grace Stank, is doing, visiting different power plants, putting that in the social media. And it used to be that you really couldn't get access to nuclear. It was very secretive. People weren't allowed in the waste repositories or inside the nuclear plants, and it was very strict how you can film there. I've just visited the Olkiluoto 3 plant with an Irish film crew, that they're making a climate documentary trying to convince people in Ireland where nuclear's banned that, this is a good thing. And nowadays I just, call up someone in TVOs, like, I have a film crew coming. I was like, yeah, sure, you can get into a reactor hall or whatever. Of course, there's a lot of security measures, but anyway, it's very important to show people what it looks like. And we also did a Climate 2 project with the local RePlanet organization in Finland, and we had YouTube stars visiting Olkiluoto 3, and they drove an electric Porsche there, and then they went around the plant, and it's really smart what they've done in Olkiluoto. The visitor center is right in the middle of nature, and they have the nature path going around the visitor center, and so you have the most spectacular view of the plants with the swan swimming from the visitor center. So that's some things that we could be doing, and we are already doing.
I would like to open up the floor to any questions that you might have for our panelists. I invite you all to, or even share if you have a personal experience about this or something that you'd like to say on this topic. I would really love to hear from you.
When it comes to nuclear waste, what do you think are the most nature-friendly solutions?
We have a very deep repository underground in Finland that's going to be finished very soon. I don't think we necessarily would need that, to be honest. I mean, we could reuse the waste, which is very environmentally friendly, because we could power like some of the nations that have nuclear for decades, but like just with the waste that we already have, even more. We had breeding reactors, so I think that would be the most environmentally friendly solution. But in the meanwhile, I think the solutions we already have are already very environmentally friendly. I mean, nuclear waste hasn't really caused from the power plants. It hasn't caused anything to the environment, basically. We're already taking care of it. So I think it's a problem that has already been solved.
The panel's ended. Please reach out to our panelists. We're still around to chat. And I challenge all of you to go out there and spread this message. Thank you very much.